Stop scrolling for a moment. This is not one of those messages you listen to casually. This is not background noise. This is a marker in time. Because February 15th is not just another date on the calendar. It is a turning point. A line drawn between how your family has struggled and how your family will live from this day forward. Pause here. Let this sink in. For years, maybe generations, your family has worked hard, prayed silently, endured patiently. Yet somehow the pressure never fully lifted. Money came in, but it disappeared just as fast. Opportunities showed up, but doors closed at the last second. You survived, but never felt secure. And the hardest part? Watching your children grow, while wondering if their future would carry the same weight you carried. This chapter begins right there. In that quiet fear you never spoke out loud. Now here's the break you must not skip. This is not coincidence. This is not motivation. This is interruption. February 15th represents the moment the pattern is challenged. Not by effort alone. Not by luck. But by timing. There are moments when provision doesn't arrive gradually. It breaks in suddenly. And this chapter is about that kind of moment. You may feel it already. A restlessness. A strange calm mixed with expectation. A sense that something is shifting behind the scenes. That is not imagination. This chapter reveals a truth many people miss. Poverty is not just about money. It is about systems, habits, mindsets, and inherited limits. And limits can be removed. What happens now does not start in your bank account. It starts in permission. Permission for your family line to rise. Permission for overflow to replace survival. Permission for your children to inherit stability instead of stress. February 15th is described as a door, not a drop. Meaning, this is not a one-time blessing. This is access. A door once opened does not need to be reopened again. But here's the tension you must understand. Doors don't open loudly. They open quietly, often when people are distracted, tired, or doubtful. That's why many miss them. This chapter asks you to stay present. Because financial breakthrough often comes disguised as a conversation you almost ignore, an idea you nearly dismiss, a connection you didn't expect, a decision that feels uncomfortable, but right. And the breakthrough is not just for you. It is generational. This chapter speaks to parents, grandparents, guardians, those who carry responsibility heavier than themselves. The shift happening now is about legacy. Your children will not struggle the way you did. They will not inherit fear around money. They will not normalize lack. But only if you recognize this moment. Here is another break. Listen carefully. This chapter does not promise instant riches. It promises released restriction. The chains that kept income capped. The ceiling that limited growth. The constant. Almost but not quite. Those are what break first. And when they break, flow begins. By the end of this chapter, one thing must be clear. February 15th is not magical. It is decisive. It marks the day you stop agreeing with struggle as your family's normal. Before moving forward, anchor this chapter with intention. Comment this specific word. Provision. Reason. Because what you name, you prepare for, and provision follows alignment. And before you go any further, do this intentionally. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on the bell icon. Because these chapters are not random content. They are sequential. Missing one changes how the next one lands. If you are ready for what happens after the door opens, type Chapter 2. The next chapter reveals what to do when opportunity finally arrives, and why hesitation is the only real enemy now. Chapter 2. When the door opens, do not hesitate. Something important must be said before you go any further. The most dangerous moment in a financial breakthrough is not before the door opens. It is right after. This is where many families lose what was meant to change everything. Pause here. Because February 15th is not only about chains breaking. It is about movement being required. Here is the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. Provision does not chase hesitation. Opportunity does not beg for confidence. Breakthrough does not wait for perfect conditions. When the door opens, it opens forward, not backward. Now let's talk about what this really looks like in real life. Especially for families who have known struggle for a long time. When you have lived under pressure for years, your mind learns survival. You become careful. You double-check everything. You wait for confirmation after confirmation. And that mindset once protected you. But now, that same caution can delay what was sent to lift you. This chapter is about timing your response. Because when financial doors open, they rarely come labeled as miracle. They come disguised as a responsibility that feels bigger than you. A decision that stretches your comfort. A chance that doesn't look guaranteed. A shift that demands trust before proof. And here's the tension that families feel most deeply. What if I fail and my children suffer? That fear is real. That fear is human. But listen carefully to this break, do not skip it. What if hesitation costs your children more than failure ever could? Because stagnation is quieter than collapse. But it is far more expensive over time. February 15th marks the moment where waiting ends. Not reckless action. Not blind risk. But faithful movement. This chapter is not telling you to jump without wisdom. It is telling you not to freeze when wisdom nudges you forward. There is something forming around your household right now. New conversations. New ideas. New financial structures. New ways of earning or managing resources. And they may feel unfamiliar. That does not mean they are wrong. It means they are new wine, and old containers cannot hold them. Another truth many families need to hear. Your children are watching how you respond to pressure. They are learning how to face uncertainty, how to make decisions, how to trust when outcomes aren't visible yet. Your courage today becomes their confidence tomorrow. That is why this chapter carries weight. Because breakthrough is not only about money increasing. It is about fear decreasing. When fear loosens its grip, clarity enters. And clarity leads to provision. Before moving forward, seal this chapter intentionally. Comment this specific word. Courage. Reason. Because courage activates movement, and movement activates doors that are already unlocked. And once again, do not skip this step. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on the bell icon. These chapters are designed to arrive in order. Missing one weakens the understanding of the next. If you are ready to learn what happens after you step through the door, when resistance tries to return, type Chapter 3. The next chapter reveals why opposition often increases after progress begins, and how to protect what has just been released for your family. Chapter 3. When resistance rises, do not turn back. Before you read another line, understand this clearly. Resistance appearing is not a sign that the door closed. It is proof that something valuable has already begun moving. Many families misunderstand this moment. They think, why is it getting harder now? I thought February 15th was supposed to make things easier. Why am I suddenly facing delays, doubts, or unexpected expenses? This chapter exists because what happens after a financial door opens is rarely discussed. Here is the reality. The moment chains of poverty begin to loosen, pressure often tries to return louder than before. Not because you are losing, but because the old system that kept you stuck is collapsing. And collapsing systems always make noise. Pause here. Do not rush past this. Because families who turn back at this stage often do so one step away from stability. Let's talk about what resistance actually looks like. It does not always look like disaster. Sometimes it looks like distraction. A sudden argument in the house. A voice saying maybe later. A delay that makes you question your decision. An old habit pulling you back into fear-based thinking. This is the moment where many parents retreat, not because they lack faith, but because they feel responsible for everyone. You think, I can't afford to make mistakes. My children depend on me. I should play it safe. But hear this carefully. Safety is not always staying where you are. Sometimes safety is moving out before the roof collapses. February 15th did not mark the absence of challenges. It marked the end of limitation. And limitation never leaves quietly. Here is a powerful truth for families. Provision often arrives in layers. First comes opportunity. Then comes testing. Then comes establishment. If you stop at testing, you never reach stability. This is why perseverance matters more now than ever. Your household is entering a restructuring phase. Old financial patterns are being questioned. Old spending habits are being exposed. Old mindsets around lack are surfacing. This is not punishment. This is preparation. Because abundance cannot live comfortably inside a mindset trained by scarcity. Another break. Listen closely. Your children are not harmed by seeing you face resistance. They are strengthened by seeing you stand through it. They are learning that pressure does not mean retreat. They are learning that discomfort does not equal danger. They are learning resilience. That lesson alone is worth more than money. This chapter is about not turning back. Not emotionally. Not mentally. Not spiritually. Even if progress feels slow. Even if results aren't visible yet. Doors that lead to generational change do not swing open like emergencies. They open like foundations. Slow. Strong. Permanent. Before you move forward, anchor this chapter. Comment this specific word. Steadfast. Reason. Because steadfastness protects what courage started. And do not skip this. This is mandatory for this series. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on the bell icon. These chapters build on each other. Missing one can confuse the season you are in. If you are ready for the next revelation, the moment when provision begins to settle, not just appear. Type. Chapter 4. The next chapter reveals why consistency unlocks lasting wealth and how families transition from survival into stability without fear returning. Chapter 4. When provision settles, from survival to stability. Stop for a moment before you continue. This chapter is not about sudden money. It is about something far more dangerous to poverty. Stability. Most families pray for breakthrough. But very few are prepared for what happens after the breakthrough begins to settle. Because survival thinking and stability living are not the same. Survival says, grab it quickly. Hide it. Expect it to disappear. Stability says, build. Plan. Remain calm even when pressure returns. This is where many households unknowingly sabotage their own progress. Not because they are careless, but because they have lived too long in uncertainty. February 15th marked the shift. Chapter 3 explained resistance. Now Chapter 4 explains establishment. And establishment requires patience. Here is the hard truth no one tells families. Not every blessing arrives loudly. Some arrive quietly and test whether you will panic or plant. When provision settles, it often shows up as a small but consistent increase, a reliable connection, a repeated opportunity, a door that stays open instead of flashing once. And this confuses people. They ask, is this all? Why doesn't it feel dramatic? Why do I still feel cautious? Because stability does not shock the system. It retrains it. Your household is learning a new rhythm. Bills no longer create panic, but discipline. Decisions are no longer rushed, but weighed. Conversations shift from fear to planning. This is progress, even if it feels unfamiliar. Break here, this matters deeply. Stability often feels boring to those who lived in chaos. But boring is safe. Boring is peaceful. Boring is where futures grow. Your children do not need dramatic miracles every week. They need consistent provision they can trust. And consistency is forming now. Another layer you must understand. This phase exposes impatience. Some people abandon steady income chasing sudden gain. Some return to risky habits because calm feels uncomfortable. Some overspend to celebrate and recreate pressure. That is why this chapter exists, to warn you. Do not confuse momentum with haste. Do not confuse peace with stagnation. What is building is meant to last longer than you. Your role right now is not to force growth. It is to protect what has begun. That means saying no to distractions, choosing discipline over impulse, letting time do its quiet work. This is how families break cycles permanently. Pause again. If you feel calmer than before, that is not weakness. If you feel cautious but hopeful, that is wisdom forming. If you feel less reactive, that is maturity rising. You are not losing intensity. You are gaining control. Before moving forward, anchor this lesson. Comment this specific word. Established. Reason. Because what is established cannot be easily stolen. Now listen carefully, this is mandatory. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on the bell icon. These chapters are sequential. Missing one breaks understanding. If you are ready for the next chapter, the moment where stability begins to multiply and legacy thinking activates. Type Chapter 5. The next chapter reveals why patience attracts increase and how families step into long-term security without returning to fear. Chapter 5. When stability multiplies, the shift from income to inheritance. Do not rush into this chapter. What you are about to read is the difference between a family that survives for years and a family that prospers for generations. Most people believe multiplication comes from earning more. That is false. Multiplication comes from thinking differently once stability is secured. Up to now, your household has been healing from pressure. Bills no longer control your emotions. Fear no longer dictates your choices. You are no longer reacting, you are responding. Now something subtle begins to happen. Your mind starts asking new questions. Not, how do we get through this month? But, how do we position ourselves for the next decade? This is where inheritance thinking is born. Break here. Read this slowly. Income feeds a lifestyle. Inheritance feeds a bloodline. And most families never reach this phase because they remain stuck celebrating relief instead of preparing for responsibility. February 15th opened the door. Chapters 1 through 4 stabilize the ground. Chapter 5 is about multiplication without chaos. Here is the principle that separates lasting families from struggling ones. What you manage calmly, you qualify to multiply. This is why growth sometimes pauses. Not because provision stopped, but because wisdom is being tested. Multiplication does not arrive to those who chase it. It arrives to those who can hold it without panic. Now understand this clearly. When multiplication begins, it rarely shows up as a lottery moment. It appears as a skill that suddenly gains demand, a connection that keeps returning, a resource that stretches further than expected, a door that opens again after you thought it was done. These are signals. And signals require interpretation, not emotion. Here is where families either rise or repeat cycles. Some people see extra margin and relaxed discipline. Some see progress and abandon structure. Some see ease and forget humility. That is how increase leaks away. But you are being trained differently. Your household is learning to delay gratification, document decisions, think in years, not weeks, protect peace over appearances. This is not accidental. Legacy always starts quietly. Children notice consistency before they notice wealth. They learn habits before they inherit assets. And this chapter is shaping habits. Another pause, this matters deeply. If you feel less urgency than before, do not be alarmed. Urgency was for survival. Intentionality is for expansion. Your pace slowing does not mean progress stopped. It means control has increased. This is how multiplication stays clean. Now listen carefully. The next phase will introduce choice. Multiple options. Multiple directions. Multiple invitations. And not all of them are aligned. That is why Chapter 6 is critical. Before you move forward, seal this chapter. Comment this specific word. Multiply. Reason. Because what multiplies under control creates inheritance, not pressure. Now this is non-negotiable. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on the bell icon. These chapters are connected. Missing one creates confusion instead of clarity. If you are ready for the next chapter, where discernment becomes the gatekeeper and distractions are exposed, type Chapter 6. The next chapter explains why not every open door is meant for your family, and how to choose paths that protect your future instead of draining it. Chapter 6. When too many doors open, why discernment protects your family. Pause before you read this. This chapter is not about opportunity. It is about selection. Because when financial pressure breaks, something dangerous replaces it. Options. Most families think options are a blessing. But unmanaged options destroy more futures than lack ever did. This is where many households lose what they just gained. Up to now, your journey was simple. Survive. Stabilize. Recover. But now the environment changes. People start calling again. Ideas start sounding attractive. Old connections resurface with new promises. You should try this. You should invest there. You should expand quickly. This is the season where speed looks wise, but patience is smarter. Break here. Read this twice. Not every open door is provision. Some doors are distractions dressed as progress. Families that collapse after breakthroughs usually collapse here. Why? Because discernment was never developed under pressure. Only survival was. And survival skills do not protect increase. Discernment does. Here is how you know discernment is being activated in your household. You feel hesitation before saying yes. You no longer rush to explain your plans. You protect privacy more than applause. You ask fewer people for advice. You observe patterns instead of words. This is maturity. This is how stability becomes legacy. Now understand something critical. Real alignment feels calm, not exciting. Real direction feels steady, not dramatic. If something feels urgent, loud, or emotionally charged, it usually comes with a hidden cost. And costs do not always show up as money. Sometimes the cost is peace in the home, time with children, health of elders, unity between spouses. That is too expensive. This chapter is training your family to value quiet growth over noisy success. Another pause. The reason February 15th mattered was not the money, it was the shift in authority. You are no longer reacting to life. You are deciding. And decisions require boundaries. Here is a rule that protects households in this phase. If it threatens your peace, it is not aligned, no matter how profitable it looks. This rule keeps families intact. Now listen carefully. The next chapter will deal with something deeper. Because once distractions are filtered, something else appears. Responsibility. Not responsibility to survive, but responsibility to steward. And stewardship changes everything. Before moving forward, seal this chapter. Comment this specific word. Discernment. Reason. Because increase without discernment creates loss, not legacy. Now do this without delay. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on the bell icon. These chapters are sequential. Missing one weakens the whole structure. If you are ready for the next chapter, where responsibility replaces fear and stewardship replaces struggle, type Chapter 7. The next chapter reveals why what you hold now must be managed differently than anything you held before, and how families either rise or fracture at this exact stage. Chapter 7. When responsibility replaces fear, the weight that builds a family. Do not rush into this chapter. Because what you are about to read is where many families quietly fail, not from attack, not from loss, but from mismanagement of responsibility. Up to now, fear shaped your decisions. Fear of shortage. Fear of collapse. Fear of tomorrow. Fear made you careful. But now fear is lifting. And something heavier takes its place. Responsibility. This is not a punishment. This is a promotion. But promotions come with weight. Here is the truth most people are never told. What you prayed to escape becomes what you must now carry wisely. Break here. Read this slowly. Responsibility does not arrive loudly. It arrives silently, and stays. Bills are no longer the main concern. Now it is planning, direction, structure, timing. Parents feel it first. You wake up thinking about the future of your children, not just the present. You start thinking about education, values, stability, examples. You start asking, what am I teaching without speaking? This is where households separate into two paths. One path says, we deserve comfort now. The other path says, we must build something that lasts. Comfort feels good. Legacy feels heavy. And heavy things require strength. Another break. Responsibility will test unity inside the home. Because not everyone adjusts at the same pace. One family member may still think like survival. Another may already think like stewardship. This gap creates tension if not handled with patience. Understand this. Responsibility matures relationships, or exposes fractures. That is why communication becomes more important than money at this stage. Silence creates assumptions. Assumptions create resentment. And resentment erodes everything quietly. If you are wise, you will do this. Talk before deciding. Listen before acting. Align before expanding. Now hear this carefully. Responsibility is not about control. It is about coverage. Coverage for elders. Coverage for children. Coverage for moments when strength fades. A family that prepares together does not panic together. This is why discipline enters the picture now. Discipline in spending. Discipline in time. Discipline in who has access to your plans. Not everyone needs to know what you are building. Privacy is protection at this stage. Break again. This chapter exists to reframe your mindset. You are no longer trying to escape hardship. You are building a standard. Standards protect families across generations. Without standards, blessings scatter. With standards, blessings settle. Now pause and reflect. If responsibility feels heavy lately, that is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that you are trusted with more. But trust demands order. And order is what the next chapter will confront directly. Because order is where many resist. Before you move on, anchor this lesson. Comment this specific word. Responsibility. Reason. Because what you acknowledge, you learn to carry correctly. Now take this seriously. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on the bell icon. These chapters are progressive. Missing one creates confusion later. If you are ready to continue to the chapter where order replaces chaos and structure protects increase, type Chapter 8. The next chapter will expose why unstructured growth destroys families, and how order quietly secures everything you are trying to protect. Chapter 8. Order before increase. Why chaos destroys what blessings build. Stop scrolling. This chapter is not loud. It is dangerous in a quiet way. Because many families lose everything after the breakthrough, not before it. Read that again. They survived the storm, but collapsed in calm weather. Why? Because increase arrived before order. And increase without order multiplies chaos. Break here. Up to this point, life trained you to react. Bills came, you reacted. Problems came, you reacted. Pressure came, you reacted. Reaction kept you alive. But reaction cannot sustain growth. Now your family is entering a phase where reaction must be replaced with structure. And structure feels uncomfortable at first. Because structure demands decisions before problems appear. This is where most people resist. They say, I'll organize later. I'll plan once things stabilize. I'll fix it when it becomes serious. That delay is how leakage begins. Money leaks. Time leaks. Energy leaks. Trust leaks. And leaks are silent killers. Another break. Order is not about being strict. Order is about clarity. Clarity of roles. Clarity of boundaries. Clarity of priorities. Who decides what? Who handles what? What is non-negotiable? What can wait? Without clarity, assumptions form. Assumptions create conflict. Conflict drains progress. This is why many homes argue more after things improve. Because growth exposes disorganization. Now listen carefully. Order must begin inside the home before it ever touches finances. A house without routine cannot manage resources. A family without alignment cannot handle responsibility. A future without structure cannot protect children. Parents feel this pressure deeply. You start asking, how do I guide without controlling? How do I provide without spoiling? How do I prepare them for a world I can't fully predict? The answer is order. Not fear. Not force. Order. Break again. Order teaches children security. Order teaches adults peace. Order turns effort into progress. And here is the truth people rarely accept. Order feels boring to the undisciplined. But it feels safe to the wise. Safe enough to grow. Safe enough to plan. Safe enough to dream bigger. This chapter exists because the next phase of your journey will test consistency. Not faith. Not effort. Consistency. And consistency collapses without order. Before moving forward, lock this lesson in. Comment this specific word. Order. Reason. Because what you name, you begin to respect, and what you respect, you maintain. Now do not skip this instruction. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on the bell icon. These chapters build on each other. Missing one weakens the foundation. If you are ready for the next chapter, where discipline protects prosperity and habits shape destiny, type Chapter 9. The next chapter will reveal why habits, not luck, decide which families rise for generations and which repeat the same struggles forever. Chapter 9. The habits that decide generations, why some families rise and others repeat pain. Do not rush this chapter. Because this is where destiny quietly gets decided. Not by one big miracle. Not by one lucky break. But by the small things done every single day when nobody is watching. Pause here. Most people believe breakthroughs change habits. That is a lie. Habits decide whether breakthroughs stay. This is why two families can receive the same opportunity. One multiplies it. The other loses it within years. Same income. Same timing. Same chance. Different habits. Break. Habits are invisible agreements you make with your future. Every habit says, "This is the kind of life I'm willing to repeat." Read that again slowly. Your children are not learning from what you say. They are absorbing what you repeat. How you speak under stress. How you manage money when no one is watching. How you treat rest, discipline, time, and responsibility. These things teach louder than words ever could. Another break. This chapter is uncomfortable because it removes excuses. It's no longer about bad luck. It's no longer about enemies. It's no longer about the past. It's about patterns. And patterns don't lie. Look closely at families stuck in cycles, same arguments every year. Same money stress every season. Same broken promises, same regrets. They are not cursed. They are consistent, just in the wrong direction. Consistency is powerful. It just follows whatever you feed it. Break again. Now here's the turning point. You do not need to fix everything at once. That's how people quit. You only need to interrupt one habit. One habit done daily beats 10 changes done once. This is how generational shifts actually begin. One new routine. One boundary. One decision that says, "This stops with me." That sentence carries weight. This stops with me. It means poverty does not get passed down. Chaos does not get normalized. Emotional absence does not repeat. Fear does not become inheritance. But here's the hard truth most avoid. Good habits feel boring before they feel powerful. Bad habits feel comforting before they become destructive. That's why discipline feels lonely at first. You are walking ahead of the crowd. Another pause. Parents especially feel this. You want to give your children ease, But ease without discipline creates weakness. You want to protect them, but protection without structure creates dependence. So you model habits instead of preaching them. You show consistency. You show restraint. You show responsibility. Even when it's inconvenient. Especially when it's inconvenient. Because habits formed in quiet seasons protect families in loud storms. Break. This chapter exists because the next level of life will not respond to motivation. It will respond to systems. Systems of time. Systems of money. Systems of communication. Systems of rest. Without systems, success collapses. With systems, pressure becomes manageable. Before moving forward, anchor this truth. Comment this specific word. Habits. Reason. Because what you repeat becomes your reality, and naming it commits you to change. Do not skip this step. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on the bell icon. Each chapter strengthens the next. Missing one weakens the chain. If you are ready for the next chapter, where discipline turns into protection and wisdom shields your family, type Chapter 10. The next chapter will expose why discipline is not restriction, but the shield that keeps blessings from leaking away. Chapter 10. Discipline is the shield. Why blessings leak from unguarded lives. Stay with me. Because this chapter separates those who receive from those who keep. Most people pray for open doors. Very few prepare for what comes through them. That is why many celebrate a breakthrough and quietly lose it later. Not because the blessing was fake, but because there was no shield around it. Pause. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is protection. Read that again slowly. Discipline is the fence around your future. Without it, anything valuable can wander off. Break. Look closely at families that finally rise after years of struggle. What do they all have in common? Not luck. Not talent. Not connections. They develop rules for themselves. Rules about money. Rules about time. Rules about access. Rules about emotions. They stop letting everything and everyone enter freely. Because everything that enters your life consumes something: time, energy, focus, peace. If you don't choose what enters, chaos will choose for you. Another break. This is why discipline feels uncomfortable at first. It tells you no when emotions say yes. Wait when impulses say now. Enough when appetite says more. And most people run from that voice. But listen carefully. Every no to impulse is a yes to stability. Every wait creates room for wisdom. Every boundary becomes an insurance policy for your family. Parents, this part matters deeply. Your children do not need unlimited freedom. They need visible structure. Structure teaches safety. Structure teaches responsibility. Structure teaches self-respect. A child raised without discipline grows up negotiating consequences. A child raised with discipline grows up commanding respect. Break again. Discipline also exposes hidden leaks. Money leaks through untracked spending. Peace leaks through unguarded conversations. Focus leaks through endless distractions. Strength leaks through inconsistent routines. And people wonder why progress feels slow. It's not slow. It's leaking. This chapter is not about becoming harsh. It's about becoming intentional. You don't need to control everything. You only need to guard what matters. Your mornings. Your money. Your mental space. Your home environment. When discipline enters a household, arguments decrease. Clarity increases. Direction forms. And something powerful happens. Pressure stops crushing you and starts shaping you. Pause here. Discipline today prevents desperation tomorrow. Most people wait until things fall apart to get serious. Wise people build systems while things are quiet. This is how storms stop destroying families. Not by panic. By preparation. Break. Before you move forward, anchor this chapter. Comment this specific word. Shield. Reason. Because discipline is not restriction, It is the guard that keeps what you prayed for from being stolen. Do not skip this. Subscribe to this channel now. Turn on the bell icon. Each chapter builds protection layer by layer. Missing one weakens the structure. If you are ready for the next chapter, where patience turns into timing and waiting becomes strategy, type Chapter 11. The next chapter will reveal why rushing destroys destiny, and why those who wait correctly arrive stronger, richer, and steadier than those who run. Chapter 11. The power of timing, why waiting is not delay, it is design. Do not rush past this chapter, because what you are about to hear will explain why some people arrive late, yet still win everything, and why others arrive early and lose it all. Stay with me till the end. Most people believe waiting means being ignored. It does not. Waiting is being positioned. There is a difference. Break. Look carefully at nature. Fruit does not ripen the moment it appears. A seed does not become a tree in a week. A child does not become strong by being born early. Everything valuable has a process. And anything forced before time breaks under pressure. This is where many lives collapse. They prayed for speed, but skipped preparation. They wanted results, but avoided refinement. They asked for reward, but rejected responsibility. So when opportunity came, it crushed them instead of carrying them. Pause. Timing is protection. Arriving too early exposes you. Arriving too late humbles you. Arriving on time establishes you. And timing is not random. Timing is shaped by what you can handle without breaking. Another break. Some of you listening right now feel frustrated. You say, I've been patient. I've been faithful. I've been consistent. And yet nothing has moved. Listen carefully. Stillness does not mean stagnation. Silence does not mean absence. Delay does not mean denial. Many times, what looks like waiting is actually strengthening. Your mind is being trained. Your emotions are being stabilized. Your discernment is being sharpened. Because what is coming next will require maturity, not excitement. Break again. Think about money. Money arriving before discipline creates arrogance. Money arriving after discipline creates legacy. Think about influence. Influence arriving before character creates scandals. Influence arriving after character creates leaders. Think about responsibility. Responsibility arriving before wisdom creates fear. Responsibility arriving after wisdom creates authority. This is why timing matters more than desire. Desire asks, why not now? Timing asks, are you ready to keep it? Pause here. Families collapse when things arrive before systems are built. Homes suffer when provision increases but values remain weak. That is why wise waiting saves generations. Waiting builds roots. Roots hold weight. Weight sustains blessing. Break. If you feel tired of waiting, this chapter is not telling you to stop hoping. It is telling you to stop doubting the process. Your waiting is not empty. It is loaded. Loaded with lessons. Loaded with strength. Loaded with alignment. And when alignment meets opportunity, nothing can stop momentum. But hear this clearly. Waiting only works when paired with preparation. Waiting without growth becomes procrastination. Waiting with growth becomes acceleration. Use this season wisely. Guard your habits. Refine your routines. Strengthen your discipline. Protect your peace. Because when the door opens, there will be no time to get ready. You will step in as you are. Break. Before you move forward, seal this chapter. Comment this specific word. Timing. Reason. Because honoring timing prevents premature loss and prepares you to sustain what is coming. Do not skip this step. Subscribe to this channel now. Turn on the bell icon. Each chapter builds on the last. Missing one weakens the foundation. If you are ready for the next chapter, where pressure turns into promotion and tests become gateways, type Chapter 12. The next chapter will expose why pressure increases right before elevation, and how to recognize when resistance means you are close. Chapter 12. When pressure increases, you are not failing, you are being positioned. Do not read this casually, because this chapter will explain something that confuses almost everyone right before their breakthrough. Why does life get heavier? Exactly when you decide not to quit? Why does resistance rise? Exactly when you start believing again? Why do obstacles multiply? Right before something finally changes. Stay with me. Do not scroll. This is the chapter many people never hear, and that is why they give up too early. Break. Pressure is not punishment. Pressure is proof of proximity. Nothing valuable is unguarded. Nothing powerful is uncontested. Nothing destined is unchallenged. Resistance only appears when there is something worth resisting. If nothing important were ahead, nothing would try to stop you. Pause. Pressure does not mean you are going the wrong way. Many times, it means you are going the exact right way. Think carefully. You do not feel pressure in comfort zones. You feel pressure at thresholds. Doors do not resist those who walk away. They resist those who are about to enter. Break again. Most people misunderstand pressure, so they retreat. They say, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I heard wrong. Maybe I should stop. But pressure is a question, not a verdict. It asks, will you panic, or will you stay steady? Will you react, or will you refine? Will you retreat, or will you rise? Pressure reveals what training has produced. When pressure hits and chaos comes out, preparation was missing. When pressure hits and clarity remains, alignment is present. Pause here. You were not brought this far to collapse under weight. You were brought this far because you can carry more than you think. Pressure is weight training for destiny. No strength is built without resistance. No authority is formed without endurance. Break. Notice this pattern. Right before elevation, confusion tries to enter your mind. Right before provision, fear tries to dominate your thoughts. Right before clarity, doubt tries to become loud. That is not coincidence. That is transition. Your old level is losing its grip on you, and your new level is testing your stability. Pressure exists in the space between who you were and who you are becoming. Most people quit in that space. Do not break again. Pressure does not ask you to move faster. It asks you to move wiser. Rushing under pressure creates mistakes. Stillness under pressure creates mastery. This is where discernment matters. Not every urgent feeling deserves action. Not every loud emotion deserves attention. Pressure will try to force a reaction. Wisdom chooses a response. Pause. Some of you feel stretched right now. Emotionally, mentally, financially, spiritually. That stretching is not tearing you apart. It is expanding your capacity. What used to overwhelm you will soon feel normal. What used to scare you will soon feel familiar. Because capacity always grows before blessing arrives. Break. Pressure also reveals who belongs in your next season. Some connections collapse under pressure. Some relationships fade when weight increases. Do not chase what pressure exposes. Anything that cannot survive growth, cannot help you sustain elevation. Let it go without bitterness. What remains after pressure is what is strong enough to go forward with you. Pause again. This chapter is not telling you to enjoy pressure. It is telling you to interpret it correctly. Pressure is not a sign to stop. It is a signal to stabilize. Breathe. Focus. Slow your reactions. Sharpen your decisions. Because when pressure lifts, and it will, momentum will come quickly. And those who stayed steady will move faster than those who panicked. Break. Seal this chapter now. Comment this specific word. Steady. Reason. Because steadiness under pressure determines who rises when the weight is removed. Do not skip this. Now listen carefully. Subscribe to this channel right now. Turn on the bell icon. These chapters are progressive. Missing one breaks the sequence. If you are ready for what comes next, the chapter where hidden preparation is revealed and silent seasons suddenly make sense, type Chapter 13. The next chapter will show why quiet seasons are never empty, and how unseen work creates visible results faster than anyone expects. Chapter 13. The silent season was not empty, it was loading your future. Do not underestimate this chapter. This is where most people misunderstand their life and walk away too early. Because silence feels like abandonment. Stillness feels like delay. Waiting feels like denial. But what if silence was never absence? Pause. Stay with me. There are seasons where nothing moves on the outside. Yet everything is rearranging on the inside. No applause. No signs. No confirmations. Just quiet. And people panic in the quiet. They say, "Nothing is happening. I must be forgotten. Maybe this is the end." But silence is not the end. Silence is preparation without distraction. Break. Noise is useful for visibility. Silence is necessary for formation. Some things cannot be built in public. Some strength cannot be developed under applause. Some clarity cannot survive constant opinion. That is why growth often hides. If everything you are becoming was visible too early, pressure would crush it before it matured. So the process moves underground. Pause here. Seeds do not grow in sunlight first. They grow in darkness. And darkness does not mean death. It means roots are forming. Roots decide height. Depth decides stability. Break. Your silent season was teaching you things words never could. How to stand without validation. How to decide without approval. How to trust without evidence. That is dangerous strength. People who need noise to keep going collapse when attention disappears. But people formed in silence do not need permission to move. Pause again. Silence also protects you. Not everyone needs access to your becoming. Not everyone can interpret your growth correctly. Some would rush you. Some would discourage you. Some would distort what is still forming. So the process stays quiet. What you are carrying is too valuable to be handled by impatient voices. Break. Think carefully. The longest silent seasons often precede the fastest visible shifts. Because once preparation is complete, movement does not need explanation. Doors open quickly. Opportunities align suddenly. Momentum accelerates without warning. People will say, "It happened overnight." They will never see the years of silence behind it. Pause. If you are in a quiet season right now, this chapter is your confirmation. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not ignored. You are being built without interruption. Break. Silence teaches precision. In noise, people chase everything. In silence, people learn discernment. You stop reacting to every emotion. You stop explaining every choice. You stop defending every step. You become intentional. That is authority forming. Authority does not announce itself. It enters rooms already settled. Pause again. When the silent season ends, you will move differently. You will speak less but carry more weight. You will explain less but command more respect. You will rush less but progress faster. Because silence removes desperation. And desperation is what delays outcomes. Break. Now understand this clearly. The silence will not last forever. But it must last long enough. If it ended too early, you would leak what you were meant to hold. So do not force noise. Do not manufacture movement. Do not rush the reveal. What is loaded properly moves without resistance. Pause. Seal this chapter. Comment this specific word. Rooted. Reason. Because what is rooted deeply cannot be shaken publicly. Do this intentionally. Now listen carefully. Subscribe to this channel right now. Turn on the bell icon. These chapters build on each other. Missing one weakens the whole message. If you are ready for the next shift, the chapter where delayed answers suddenly collide into alignment, type Chapter 14. The next chapter will reveal why timing matters more than effort, and how patience positions you ahead of people who move too early. Chapter 14. Why your answer did not come early, and why it will arrive all at once. Before you read another line, slow down. This chapter is not loud. It is precise. Because what delayed you was not denial. It was alignment. Most people believe answers come when effort peaks. That is not true. Answers arrive when timing matures. Break. You were ready before the situation was. Your heart was prepared before the door existed. Your hunger was strong before the opportunity could sustain you. So the answer waited. Not to punish you. To protect you. Pause. If it had arrived early, it would have required constant repair. If it had arrived early, it would have drained instead of multiplied. If it had arrived early, it would have exposed you before you were positioned. Timing is not about speed. It is about sustainability. Break. Look closely at your past. Every time you forced something early, you paid for it with exhaustion. Every time you waited and aligned, momentum carried you without strain. That is not coincidence. That is pattern recognition. Pause. Delayed answers gather power. While you waited, pieces were being arranged that you never saw, people were being moved out of the way. Resources were being redirected. Conditions were being stabilized. You thought nothing was happening. But timing was negotiating on your behalf. Break. This is why when the answer finally arrives, it does not trickle. It collides. Multiple confirmations at once. Doors opening back to back. Solutions appearing from unexpected directions. People call it luck. But luck is what preparation looks like to observers. Pause. There is a reason you did not receive half answers. Partial answers confuse direction. Full alignment creates momentum. So the delay protected clarity. Break. Now listen carefully. Timing also exposes who truly belongs in your next season. Some people disappear during delays. They only understand movement, not process. Others stay through silence. They do not need proof to remain. When the answer arrives, you will know exactly who earned proximity. Pause. This chapter matters because impatience creates leaks. People rush answers and then wonder why peace disappears. They demand speed and then manage chaos. But aligned timing removes friction. You do not chase. You do not force. You do not explain. Things simply move. Break. You are closer than you think. The reason everything feels heavy right before alignment is because systems are shifting. Pressure increases before release. Resistance spikes before breakthrough. That does not mean stop. It means stay steady. Pause. When timing locks in, you will notice three things. You will feel calm instead of anxious. You will act decisively without fear. You will move without seeking approval. That is alignment. Break. Seal this chapter. Comment this specific word. Align. Reason. Because what arrives in alignment does not require struggle to keep. Do not skip this. Now listen. Subscribe to this channel right now. Turn on the bell icon. These chapters are sequential. Missing one interrupts the understanding. If you are ready for the next chapter, the moment when effort stops being necessary and flow begins, type Chapter 15. The next chapter will reveal why ease is not weakness, and how flow becomes your new normal after prolonged resistance. Chapter 15. When struggle ends, and flow quietly takes over. Do not rush this chapter. If you are still here, it is because something inside you recognized a shift before your mind could explain it. This is the moment most people misunderstand. They think struggle ending means effort disappearing. It does not. It means resistance stops arguing with your direction. Break. There is a season where everything feels heavy because you are pushing against misalignment. And there is a season where movement feels light because alignment begins to carry you. Flow is not laziness. Flow is cooperation with timing. Pause. You were trained to believe that constant pressure equals progress. But pressure only proves force. It does not prove direction. Flow proves direction. Break. Look back carefully. The hardest seasons of your life were not hard because you were weak. They were hard because you were early. Early to the opportunity. Early to the responsibility. Early to the harvest. So effort felt like dragging weight uphill. Pause. Now something is different. You are not pushing as hard, yet things are moving faster. You are doing less explaining, yet people understand you more. You are making fewer adjustments, yet outcomes are improving. That is flow entering. Break. Flow does not announce itself loudly. It starts with reduced resistance. Conversations stop requiring justification. Decisions stop requiring reassurance. Opportunities stop requiring persuasion. Things simply respond. Pause. This is where many people sabotage themselves. They panic when struggle ends. They assume ease means danger. They reintroduce chaos because calm feels unfamiliar. Do not do that. Break. Ease is not a trap. It is confirmation. When the system finally matches your capacity, movement becomes efficient. You stop leaking energy. You stop correcting constantly. You stop proving worth. Flow is earned, not given. Pause. You paid for this season in patience. You financed it with endurance. You funded it with silence. That is why it lasts. Break. Now understand this clearly. Flow does not mean everything will be perfect. It means obstacles no longer drain you. Problems become tasks instead of threats. Delays become pauses instead of punishments. Waiting becomes restful instead of stressful. That is mastery. Pause. When flow settles in, your intuition sharpens. You know when to move. You know when to pause. You know when to say no without guilt. This is not arrogance. This is clarity. Break. And clarity attracts provision. The right people recognize you faster. Resources align without negotiation. Doors open without force. This is the reward of staying aligned through resistance. Pause. Seal this chapter properly. Comment this specific word. Flow. Reason. Because what flows toward you does not require force to maintain. Do not skip this step. Now listen carefully. Subscribe to this channel right now. Turn on the bell icon. These chapters build in order. Missing one weakens the understanding of the next. If you are ready to continue, if you want to understand why stability comes after flow and how to protect it, type Chapter 16. The next chapter will show you how to keep momentum without burnout, and how to recognize when expansion is real versus premature. Final chapter, the quiet arrival of what you prayed for. Stay with this until the end. Not because of curiosity, but because endings decide how beginnings behave. Pause. Most people imagine miracles as noise, loud changes, sudden announcements, overnight reversals that shock everyone watching. But the truest shifts arrive quietly. Break. What you asked for did not rush toward you. It studied you first. It waited to see if you would grow bitter or grounded, if you would stay faithful or become frantic, if you would quit when progress slowed. You stayed. That is why this ending is gentle, not explosive. Pause. Look closely at your life right now. The chaos is reducing. The confusion is thinning. The pressure is lifting, not all at once, but consistently. That is not coincidence. That is completion. Break. Completion does not mean everything is finished. It means the hardest version of the lesson is over. You are no longer being tested for endurance. You are being trusted with stewardship. Pause. This is where many fail. They relax too much. They stop listening. They assume the work is done. But this is not rest. This is transition. Break. You are moving from survival to stability. From hoping to managing. From asking to receiving. Receiving requires maturity. Pause. What is coming into your life now will stay. Only if you respect it. Peace stays where it is protected. Provision stays where it is handled wisely. Relationships stay where they are valued, not exploited. That is why you had to grow first. break. You were never delayed. You were being shaped into someone who would not destroy the answer once it arrived. Pause. Now hear this clearly. The reward is already in motion. Not because you demanded it, but because you became ready for it. This chapter closes the struggle phase. What comes next is not louder. It is deeper. Break. Before you leave this moment, seal it. Comment this specific word. Ready. Reason. Because readiness attracts what force never can. Do not skip this. And one more thing. Subscribe to this channel now. Turn on the bell icon. Not for motivation, but for alignment. These messages come in sequence. And what comes next will require clarity, not confusion. This chapter ends here. The next season begins quietly. But it will last. Stay steady. Stay aware. Stay ready.